Hi, everyone. Okay, so we are at Data Left Unattended. And we want to see how many of you are data engineers. And since we can't actually see you, we are going to say that all of you are data engineers for this session. Even you, William, I know you made some remarks earlier about too few DBA topics, but you are now a data engineer. So, as a data engineer, you're starting a new project. And when we're starting a new project, we're always getting into, the same kind of question. Which tool do we use? And then it's always like, okay, let's discuss this. What are our options? So
are we going to do Azure Databricks?
Or are we going to do Azure Synapse Analytics?
Or should we just do Microsoft Fabric?
So these are three two of the hot topics, and then me doing Synapse. But different tools.
You said it, we didn't.
Yes.
That was your word.
So people always ask us these questions like, which one do you use? What's appropriate for my project? What are we going to go for? And as consultants, I think all of us in the room and all three of us are consultants, and probably some of you. And the answer to that is, of course, it depends, right? But that is what we're going to try to answer in this session today. We want to look at what does it depend on and give you a little bit more information about what to consider, give you some ideas on the most common use cases and the proper use cases for each of those tools, and then look into a little bit on the pricing side, which is also important when choosing a tool. So let's go ahead and take a look. This is choosing between Azure Databricks, Azure Synapse Analytics, and Microsoft Fabric. My name is Cathrine, or Cathrine. I'm a solutions architect in a Norwegian consultancy called Emilie. I do all things organizing, speaking, volunteering, and I've been an MVP since 2015. So I love doing this. And then we have Beyonce in tech.
Oh, what introduction. Well, yes, hello, my name is Marthe, or Marthe. I am a managing data analyst at Soprasteria, and I also do all things, community things in Norway, so organizing events and conferences and so on. And obviously, I'm just going to name drop Fabric February, but we'll talk more about that later. And yeah, that was smooth. Very smooth. I just wanted that. Yeah, Emilie.
Yes.
Who are you?
Hi, my name is Emilie, or Emilie, as we say in Norway. I am a snack queen, which is a title that
that you made for yourself?
Yeah, I made it myself. I'm very fond of it. I'm a senior data engineer in a company called Quarks, based in Oslo, Norway, and also Singapore, which is kind of cool. I just started this year becoming a part of the speaking / organizing / volunteering community. So yeah, I'm happy that you guys kind of brought me along.
Yes, but you are going like whoosh.
Yes, like
whoosh. Yes. Future MVP, everyone.
Yeah.
No hurry. All right, so let's get started with you.
Yes.
Let's look into Azure Databricks.
Databricks.
Yes.
All the things.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So let me just start by saying that Azure Databricks is the best. It is a unified open analytics platform where you can do a lot of different stuff. And we are going to say that it's going to be a little bit similar like what we're going to look at later today, but with Databricks, you're able to do all the things that you want to do with your data. You're able to share it, you're able to query it, you're able to ingest it, transform it, do some artificial intelligence, some machine learning, some real-time streaming. You can do a lot with these different experiences that you have available. And the great thing about Azure Databricks is that you are able to do this within the same interface. So you log on to your Azure portal, you go in, and for those of you who watched Heine's session earlier today, you saw her demo, and it's kind of neat how the experiences within the database user interface is kind of cool, how they all combine and are together. But as different roles, you're also able to work in your separate, smaller environments. It's based on Spark. So we're using Spark as our compute power for everything, basically. So let's jump in and see what and how you can use Azure Databricks for data engineering. So within the data engineering experience, it's common to use And if you don't use it, you shouldn't use Databricks. The lakehouse for storing your data, both structured and unstructured data. You use notebooks for writing your code to transform the data. You can write your code in 4 different languages. This is pretty nice because different engineers have different skill sets. So you have R, Scala, Python, and SQL, of course. And then you can orchestrate those transformation or those notebooks that you're running with a low-code solution with workflows, which is also available within Azure Databricks and running on the same type of cluster that you are using when you're running the notebooks separately and individually. And then in addition to that, we also have the data warehousing solution or Databricks SQL, which is a SQL editor and a dashboarding tool, which you can use for visualizing your data. You can do ad hoc queries. You can also schedule queries if you want to run the same types of queries at the same time, maybe each week or each month. And then you can also set alerts, which are based on the output on those scheduled queries, which is kind of cool. And in addition to that, as I mentioned, you can also create dashboards which visualizes your data if you are more comfortable looking at the output in a more visual way rather than just a table. So yeah, I think that was Azure Databricks super, super fast as an overview for data engineering and data warehousing. So where should we go next?
I think we're going to go into Azure Synapse Analytics. Yay! And this is kind of stuffing myself in the middle of these two. And there is a reason for that. So Azure Synapse Analytics is no longer the hottest topic. You know, everyone is talking about Fabric or on the other side about Databricks. So a lot of the questions are, okay, maybe we want to start with Synapse, or maybe we have started with Synapse. Should we just abandon that, or should we, you know, keep using it? But let's just take a look at what it is. So Azure Synapse Analytics came out in, I think it was 2019 it was released. It is a unified analytics platform. And it covers pretty much everything that you need to build a platform for data and analytics. So of course you have the data integration part. This is coming from Azure Data Factory. So you have all the pipelines and also the data flows with the space, very important, data flows with the space and Azure Synapse Analytics. So you have the entire data integration part for ingesting data and transforming data. In addition to that, they've also joined together, you know, some of the more, the other services that used to be separate services in Azure that is now being tied into one. So out of the box, when you create your Synapse workspace, you also get your data lake, which is basically just a storage account with hierarchical namespaces enabled. So you can use that as your own data lake. Nothing fancy, but you get it out of the box and it's all integrated inside of the Synapse workspace. You also have the data warehousing component, and I think this is key when talking about Synapse Analytics because this is where it kind of came from. So years ago, we had SQL Data Warehouse that was rebranded to Synapse. And so a lot of people still think of Synapse as this only enterprise data warehousing tool. But it's not. You can use it for more things. I'll get back to that. You'd also do big data analytics. You can do kind of the same things that you can in Databricks. A few differences. Synapse is usually a couple of steps behind, maybe on implementing functionality. But if you are working in those large projects, maybe that doesn't matter to you as much. You can also do time series analytics and, of course, data science, which we're not going to cover because I'm not smart enough to talk about that. But inside of Synapse, to cover all of these different I would say experiences, you need a few different engines. So the first one is what we call SQL pools, and that is 2 different kind of SQL engines. None of them are what you know from Azure SQL. The first one is the dedicated SQL pool. This is the data warehouse component. This is coming from SQL Data Warehouse. It's a massive parallel processing engine, and it's made for those large enterprise scale data warehouse solutions. But you also have the serverless SQL, and this is my favorite, so I'm going to rant about this because I love it. I really love it. This allows you to just query files in a data lake. In addition to that, you have the Spark engine, which is very similar to Databricks, basically just Microsoft saying we want the same functionalities, we're going to roll our own. but it works the same, and it allows you to create notebooks and do basically the same things that you can in Databricks. And then you also have Data Explorer. Custo, if you've heard about that, you can write KQL, and you can do time series analytics on that. And this brings us to what I mentioned earlier. It's that, is Synapse only for those large data warehouse projects, or can you use it for other things? And the key here is to understand that you can pick and choose what to use inside of Synapse. You can create a Synapse workspace and get that data lake without paying anything for it. It can live in Azure, and you don't pay anything until you start actually using it. So you can use it as a kind of a low-cost solution or a budget solution. You can run things very cheaply, as long as you pick the right components. That means don't use the data warehouse component and don't use data flows. If you have that budget, knock yourself out. If you have that budget, if you have money to spend or money to burn, or you're just one of the Fortune 500 companies, you can look into the data warehousing component. And like I said, this is an MPP, massive parallel processing architecture, which means that all the data is being distributed across 60 of these kind of servers, or I'm not sure core is the right word, but it's right across, meaning that you get super optimized queries when you are getting your data out of it. And this is built for large amounts of data. And we're talking probably at least terabytes, probably petabytes, but we're not talking in gigabytes here. So if you have those amounts of data, then this can be a really good component for you. It allows you to set your distribution, to set your partitioning. You have full control of your indexing, and you can also set different workloads, specifying that, okay, we need to prioritize our power users so their queries run faster, and then we can deprioritize these other things. And it's still a really good tool for those enterprise scale data warehousing solutions. But the thing is, you don't need to use this at all. You don't have to pay for it. And just a quick side note on that, if you ever decide to try it, just to test it, make sure to pause it, but also make sure to delete it, because even if you have one table with one column and one row, you're going to pay something like, I don't know, $25 or something per month in just the storage. For that, you can have like the letter A or the number 1, and you're still going to pay $25 for storage. So turn it off and delete it if you're not using it, unless, unlimited budget, in which case I envy you. So the opposite side, serverless SQL. This is where you can do a lot of cool things on a low budget solution. We've been using this for a lot of smaller projects where we're kind of, I would say, maybe rolling our own lakehouse kind of idea, or virtual or logical data warehouse, where we get all of our data into a data lake. We might use the same kind of medallion structure that we know from Databricks with bronze, silver, and gold. The only thing is we have to kind of, it's not built into the tool. You have to create it yourself. But you can do that in the data lake. It's all about how you structure that data. And then you can also, get all kinds of data in there. So you can use serverless SQL and then just use pure T-SQL to query those files. And that in itself, the first time I saw it, it was mind-blowing, because I love SQL. I've been using it for many years. I feel comfortable with it. And then just, having CSV files in my data lake, and then using serverless SQL to just, query my files as if they were any regular database table. Really, really cool technology. So you can query CSV files, you can query JSON files. You can't query PDF files, but I don't think Databricks can do that. Anything that is text and columnar format, you can go ahead and query that. And you can also create your own serverless databases where you can create things like views and stored procedures. And that means that it's all virtual. It's all working on those files in your data lake, but you can use it to use SQL to apply transformations, to join and aggregate, and basically create that lakehouse-ish kind of solution. I've had a solution working in production for less than €1 per month. And it just works because we are working with small amounts of data, but we are just prepping it for users to either query or just import it into Power BI. Super cheap solutions, very good for those who use SQL already. So that is just like the opposite side. So you have two ends of the scale when it comes to Synapse, and those are kind of the highlights, I would say. So if you're looking at either of those options, then Synapse is definitely a tool that you should consider, because you can either have the performance of the enterprise scale or the super low cost, which I don't think either of your tools can compete on that super limited budget side of things. So just to summarize that, Synapse, you have all of these different services and tools that you previously had to kind of stitch together. They're all now in this unified analytics platform. So you get the data factory pipelines, you get the data lake, data warehousing, you have both Spark and Data Explorer engines, and it's kind of connected to Power BI. Kind of connected. You can view Power BI reports in the same interface, but I would say just kind of ignore that. But it looks pretty. It looks pretty. With that said, the next part.
Microsoft Fabric. Okay. So yeah, what's Microsoft Fabric? And to try and explain that, I think we actually need to have a look at what things is before Fabric, or what it has been looking like up until this point, and also where your tools come into that picture. So let's just start from the beginning. Okay, so what will a data ecosystem or a data platform solution look like today? In general terms, well, you usually have a lot of sources. And then you would probably try and pull that data through some sort of levels or layers, or you can call it whatever. Some people call it bronze, silver, gold.
It looks really
Or it could be a landing zone, refining zone, or the consumption zone.
Or staging, data warehouse, data mart. I mean, yeah, it's almost like someone had one idea and just kind of refined it for the years.
Yes,
Weird. This never happens in the data world. I don't know what happened here, but well, anyways, the idea is that you have going from the source, you have data that is similar to the source, and then you're moving all the way, pulling all that in size and increasing the quality, and then at the end you have something that you can make decisions on, and you have the insights. So to do that, you will also usually have separated storage areas that could also be separated technologies. So you might use a data lake somewhere, maybe have a SQL database somewhere else, or a Power BI data set at the end. That can depend, and it can depend on a lot of different things. So it could be, do we have some old technology, legacy systems? Do we have something that was already there? This tool might only talk to SQL databases, so we need to use that, etc. Many reasons, but you will usually have different boxes with storage. And then on top of that, you can have transformation tools like DataGrillen. That will help you transform your data. So pulling that data out of, for instance, a data lake, then you're transforming it, pulling in that insight, pulling in that business logic, and moving from place to place. And maybe you're also using Synapse. because that made sense for someone at some point in time. And also, if you're really lucky, or maybe unlucky, I don't know, you're using multiple different reporting tools at the end. Maybe someone really liked Click. Yeah, maybe. So you have all these different tools. And then to manage all of this, you need to make sure that, okay, I need to know what data do I have where, who has access to what data, and get this overview. And to do that, since you're using all these different tools, you might need to use different governance solutions. For instance, the Unity catalog maybe for Databricks specifically. Well, that will not work for anything else.
But it's very nice.
But you will know what's inside Databricks. Yeah, and maybe you want to or need to use some sort of or some of the Azure tools to know what's happening in Synapse, for instance. So you might also need multiple tools to have control on the governance level. Yes, and then all of this you need to orchestrate that. That could be Azure Data Factory. So you pull all this together, and all of these tools need to be integrated. You need to connect them. You need to find a way for them to speak to each other and be able to send the data through the solutions. And also, you might need someone that are experts in the different tools. So maybe you need Cathrine for Synapse, and then you need Emilie for Databricks, and you need me for Power BI. Who I don't know who we're using for Click. but we'll see.
The clicker.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks a bit complicated.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
It does, and
This
it's
is
kind of,
complicated.
and it requires like people like Emilie to, we have to talk to each other.
Yeah.
We have to
No.
communicate.
And it's so annoying.
I know.
Yeah, that can be tough. That can be tough. So is this scaling, you guys? Is this scalable?
Well,
Each product, yeah.
Maybe. Okay, so this is where
But can you click one button to scale all the things?
you missed my whole point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Again, what was the question?
Can you click just one button to scale all of these things?
No.
No.
No, you can't. So this is where Microsoft Fabric comes into the picture. So now pay attention to the animation. We are, instead of having multiple different storage areas, we have, I'm gonna do it again. Did we see that?
One more time.
And then this is one of the key features of Fabric, one of the really cool things.
Animation.
Yeah.
Animation. Oh.
See, we have
They all dropped into the data lake.
Yeah.
The one lake.
That's what happens in Fabric.
Now it's all in one.
Yeah, so it's called One Lake.
Okay. Tell us more about it.
Tell us more. Yeah, so this One Lake, this is your virtual layer of all your storage. So instead of having these multiple places, you can have this one stop shop to have your data. And then instead of having all these tools that you need to integrate, and it's a pain in somewhere. See what I did there? You're getting all these different experiences on top of the One Lake, and they are integrated by default. So you don't have to pick and choose. You just have all of this there, and you can decide if you want to do data engineering or if you want to use the data factory. Are you a data warehousing person, or are you a lakehouse person? What you can pick and choose in the same solution.
This looks similar to what we had in Synapse, though.
Oh yeah, but so Fabric is what they tried to do with Synapse the first time.
Yes.
Yes. So they practiced on Synapse and then they made it right.
It was a good idea in Synapse, though.
It's a great idea, and now it actually works. So, and also instead of having all these different tools to have the governance and have the control of your assets, you have something they call One Security. Microsoft called One Security. We don't know what that is yet. They haven't released it, so we'll see what that will be. But they also are putting Purview as a foundation in here as a governance and administration. And of course, all this is beautifully wrapped with AI. So you have the Copilot features inside all of these experiences. So you can use Copilot to create your DAX measures, to create your pipelines, to create your notebooks queries in Python or whatever, your SQL queries.
I get a Copilot. You
I
get
get Copilot.
You get a Copilot. You get a
Everybody gets a Copilot.
Look under your seat. Do you have Copilot?
They only cost €25 a month each.
We don't talk about the cost.
Yeah. Later.
Previews.
The more important question is, what kind of logo will One Security have?
Oh yeah. Okay, so Microsoft Fabric is a software as a service. So that means that you buy a license and then you get all this. You click a button and then you have all of this. You don't need a separate infrastructure team to set all this up, to spend months to make sure that everything's integrated and that you have a new tool. You can just, I want Fabric, and then you have it. Then you can start developing. So I made notes of your points. So what you were talking about. So Emilie talked about governance in Databricks, and that you schedule queries and dashboards. All of these you can do in Fabric. And Cathrine talked about integration, that you can do data science, time series, KQL. Again, all of this you can do inside of Fabric.
But it makes sense because I'm old and you're the young and shiny new person.
Yeah,
so
I'm also the last one presenting, so I took advantage of the situation.
I feel like you're turning this into a competition.
No, it wasn't a competition.
No.
Well, anyways, you can do all the things in Fabric, so all data movement, storage, data science, real-time analytics, business intelligence, governance, security, data warehouse or lakehouse, semantic models, you name it. Oh, black screen.
Oh,
it looks okay on Teams.
okay.
We're back.
There we go. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
That's Fabric.
Right. Do we have any questions on that before we?
Oh yes.
Before
So
we?
far, there's nothing.
No questions.
No.
Okay, that's good. Do we have any nice comments?
guess to some of the structures. There was a feedback that one lake is written together because there's a space in
it's
there.
without the space. It's like data flows with the space.
That was a
without the
nice
space.
comment.
And someone commented, "Nice slides!"
Nice slide.
Exclamation mark.
Thank you. It's very important. Make things pretty. Okay,
Oh, licensing cost question.
we will get to that.
We will get to that.
We will get to that. All right, so now we have given a very like a whirlwind tour of the 3 different services. We kind of assume that you have heard of these before. If you haven't, then go and check out all of the other sessions from DataGrillen or New Stars of Data, or maybe previous sessions today from Data Left Unattended. Lots of good videos on YouTube there. Yeah, thank you. So go and look into the details of that. But some of the things that we want to compare on, hopefully by now you have picked up on some of the strengths and maybe some of the weaknesses, and you have an idea of which one might be appropriate for you. But let's look at a few more details. So first of all, on the architectures. The first one that we have mentioned it, but we are going to go through it again and just specify it here. Data warehousing. It's a centralized repository of structured and often historical data, enabling businesses to analyze and make informed decisions. It's a very nice quote. Thank you, ChatGPT. AI is the best. But a data warehouse is basically you have your different sources with different kinds of data, and instead of just copying that data as is into a data lake, we want to go ahead and transform that. So typical ETL, we are taking everything and we are reshaping it into a nice model. That is the entire point of data warehousing, and you want to create this one single source of truth. And even though you have popular buzzwords like data lakehouse, it still kind of implements this idea in the gold layer or in the semantic model. It's still this data warehouse at the core, and it is very important. So in terms of how data work, okay, sorry, camera. Okay, okay, one more. Okay, sorry. Okay, there are people in the room, so yes.
Sorry about that.
Yes. So data warehousing. What do we think about each of these services when it comes to data warehousing? So Emilie, for Databricks.
Yeah, we mentioned Databricks SQL, which is Databricks' version of a data warehouse, where you're able to query your data based on a model that you have built in your notebooks. So I would say Databricks is fairly onto the game of the data warehouse architecture.
Yep, it works.
Yeah, it works.
You can model. You can have your stars.
Yeah,
everything. You can have your stars.
I can have multiple stars.
Yes, star schema, all the things. all the things. And then Synapse, of course, I am going to give myself a big grin on this one because this is the area where I feel like my Synapse shines on this part. Like I said, it's coming from the enterprise data warehousing world, and you also have some features that are specifically made to make data warehousing simpler, like data flows with the space. We know the spaces are important here. Mapping data flows as they were called in the past, they're not the same as the Power BI or Fabric data flows. But in terms of the Synapse world, they have built-in features for doing things like upserting or specifying just those different branches for slowly changing dimensions, for fact loading, and it has a lot of cool features. So I'm giving myself a smile when it comes to the pricing. It might be a little more of a frown because it is expensive. I'm not going to lie, it is expensive, and it's not for those smaller data warehousing projects. So once you get to a certain level, money becomes less of an issue, and that's where it shines on the data warehousing side. What about Fabric?
Well, Fabric, I feel like I already said it. You can do all the things, right? So obviously you can also do data warehousing inside of Fabric. Smiley face. What I think is cool with Fabric is also it's coming from the business perspective, right? So if they use Power BI, which was the most famous, best tool ever, and then they build Fabric on top of that or based on that. So they are using some of the tools that the Power BI user know well, and then pulling that into more of the ETL process and the work that you can do with your data. So that is the data flows without the separations of data flows. Gen 1 and Gen 2, and Gen 2 is the new thing that they pulled into Fabric, where you can actually use the Power Query tool that you have in Power BI to transform your data and also put a data destination and use that to append or replace existing files too. So I think I want to mention that, something cool. Yes. So yeah, short answer, yes, you can do data warehousing.
So data warehousing, it's a good, solid foundation. It's been around for decades, I would say, but it's still relevant. We still like Kimball. We see a comment in chat on that. And yeah, of course, all of these things. And depending on how you feel about it, maybe they all should have the same smile. But I wanted one big grid. So
there's a question. Should we do the question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Question.
So the question, I'm not quite sure exactly what they're meaning, but anyway, the question here is, if you're starting from scratch, it's easy to choose Fabric because it's the new kid on the block. It's what Microsoft really wants everyone to use, blah, blah, blah. But with an already implemented infrastructure, the migration is the point, right? So I wasn't sure exactly what that second part of the question meant. And I've pushed back asking, do you mean, how do you approach a migration? Or how would you deal with working from either Databricks or Synapse going to Fabric?
Yeah.
How would you do that? And if I'm wrong, please write in the chat that I'm wrong. But no,
yes.
The answer was yes. So how would you approach that? Is this something we talk about now or later on in this?
We can talk about it now.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's do that.
Okay, should I talk first?
Yes.
Okay, so well, the short, really generic answer is that obviously Microsoft, this is the new kid on the block. This is the cool thing. So they are created and they have created. How do you migrate from these and these and these types of things into Fabric? So it's not a button you can push yet. They're talking like they will create that for us. But right now it's you can download this, use this template to do it, and then pull it up, and then you have it in Fabric. So that exists. I can see if I can find it and put the link in the chat.
Yeah, do that.
I know. Do we want to be specific, like on the Databricks things that
how
that will look like?
Yeah, I have a couple of inputs there as well. So the neat thing about the notebooks feature is that, and I've actually done this myself already because I've demoed both Databricks and Fabric, and I didn't want to write the code again. So you can actually export and import existing notebooks from Azure Databricks directly to Microsoft Fabric, and they run perfectly as long as you change the input files and the output files, or the output destination, obviously. So that is one way to do it if you want to migrate from Databricks. But there's also a lot of discussions about how you can use your existing Azure Data Lake storage account that you're using with Azure Databricks, and just creating a shortcut to that in Microsoft Fabric, or you can restructure Azure Databricks to have one lake as the storage account with Azure Databricks. So there are discussions on how you can use these two together, because the partnership between between Databricks and Microsoft is really strong. So I don't think we want to remove any of them, but just play together in a better way.
Yeah, it's just because you want to win. But
no, it's not a competition.
Whatever. But that is a good point. You don't have to move everything into Fabric. Fabric exists to also work together with existing solutions.
Yeah.
So you can use other solutions and not have your entire ecosystem inside of Fabric, or not start with the entire ecosystem inside of Fabric.
Yeah.
You can move a bit or start using it, and it doesn't have to be, now we're dropping everything and going into Fabric. Yeah,
exactly.
So shortcuts, absolutely brilliant. Also works with things like Amazon and Google storage if you use completely different clouds. So they are trying to make Fabric in one lake work with what you already have. And there are a couple of exceptions to that. Hello, Synapse. So first of all, an important thing to call out is that the data warehousing component in Fabric is not the same as what it is in Synapse. Even though it's called data warehousing in Fabric, and they also call it Synapse data warehousing as the experience itself, it's not the same. And that is because everything in Fabric has been rebuilt. The architecture is completely different. Everything has been rebuilt from the ground up. So instead of having that NPP architecture that I mentioned that you have in Synapse, it's now based on OneLake. And all of your storage is Delta files inside of OneLake, even when you're working with the data warehousing experience. So in terms of migrating directly, it's not as simple from Synapse. But if you have something like that, shortcuts still the way to go. You can connect to your data, and you also have things coming up for databases in terms of mirroring. So Microsoft is really embracing this whole make the data live in one place, have one copy of your data, and then have OneLake be that or virtual layer where you can access everything. And the second part of that is the mapping data flows or data flows with the space. They are also not being continued in Fabric. This is where Microsoft made a decision to bring in data flows from Power BI because it is more user friendly, and this is Fabric coming more from the Power BI world. So if you currently have something in Synapse and you want to migrate entirely to Fabric at some point, they are working on tools to go from data flows to probably Spark notebooks, because data flows run on Spark underneath the hood, but they still have a little way to go there because I think they want the same kind of user-friendly graphical interface to work on it for those who prefer that low-code, no-code experience, but it is coming. So hopefully that's answered your question. If it didn't, then feel free to ask. Okay.
I just also want to quickly mention that in terms of mirroring, Snowflake is also on the roadmap. So that is also important to remember, because a lot of people are also using Snowflake for their data warehousing. So it's also there.
All right. And speaking of,
yes, data lakehouse. Okay, another nice quote from ChatGPT. Okay, so a data lakehouse combines the benefits of the data lake and the data warehouse, providing a unified platform for storing, processing, and analyzing data at scale. So what this means basically is that we are taking structured data and unstructured data and semi-structured data and then mashing it together into this data lakehouse. And how do we do that? How do we make sense of the data? We do this with different layers. Yes. And we're using terms that is understandable for everyone. Everyone knows that silver is better than bronze and gold is better than silver. So it's very understandable for both technical people and also the end users of the curated data. But what this medallion architecture basically says is that the bronze layer is your raw data, the data that comes directly from your sources. The silver layer is where you validate the data. You might do some small transformation to make it make more sense. And then the gold layer is where you add the business logic and also where you model it. So if you remember the slide that Cathrine showed with the star is also residing in the gold layer for the data lakehouse. So yeah.
So again, it's still, I think I saw a comment on it's still ETL. Yes, it is.
It is.
It's the same concept of refining data as you move through the layers. We did that 30, 40 years ago in data warehousing projects. You had to gradually improve it for different use cases. That's the same thing here. Again, it looks nice with the medallions. And,
it does.
It's shiny.
And also, if you need additional layers, you just add them. So a lot of people are using platinum as a next level if they.
We saw diamond yesterday as well. Yeah.
Yes, we did.
So platinum, diamond, and then Can we also add like iron and wood layers if you want like further down the stack? But yes, this is basically just a way of saying refining data per layer.
Yeah.
All right. So data lakehouse, Databricks. I don't think this is a surprise.
No.
Should we just leave it at that?
Yeah, I think so.
It's where it came from.
Yes.
Right.
The medallion architecture is Databricks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned earlier, in terms of Synapse, I'm getting this a little like thinking smiley because yes and no, I would say. It depends. It depends. You can do it. I'm not sure it's like I'm not sure I would call it a data lakehouse because that is now being tied to, the Delta format and to Spark and to notebooks, and it's very tied into that technology. But you can kind of get that data lakehouse functionality, feeling, yeah, because you still work with data in a data lake. You can use serverless SQL and build logic in different layers. And we've done that. We have projects where we use Dataverse using Synapse Link to get that into our Synapse workspace. And then we have just layers of views and stored procedures, transforming that data using SQL. And it is kind of the same concept. But I'm still giving it a little thinking smiley here because it's not exactly the definition of a data lakehouse. But you can replicate it, and it can also be very, very cheap because we're not working with Spark clusters. So that could be a good use case if your data amounts is fairly small. How about Fabric?
Of course, you can do it in Fabric. Yeah. So yeah. So what else should I say? No, you can put up so data lakehouse. And a cool thing, I think, is that you can easily switch between the warehousing way of working and the lakehousing way. So you just click button and then you can change. So if you want to be inside of the SQL world, you can do that. And then if you want to change and be inside of notebooks and work with the code and whatever, you can do that too. So
Best of both worlds.
Best of both worlds. And you said it.
Yes.
Well,
I'm pro all of these technologies. We have to take on a role. I'm just doing it because I'm
losing.
It's not a competition. Okay, but when we've looked at data warehousing and data lakehouse, we now have something that everyone's talking about.
The data mesh.
Yes. What's the data mesh?
Okay, so this is the ChatGPT text, right?
Yep.
So architectural pattern for implementing enterprise data platforms in a large and complex organization. And yes, I guess that's where the data mesh comes from. So the key concept is that you're tired of having this monolithic one place. It could be a monolithic data warehouse or even a data lake that you need a specialized team to be in there to give you the data you need, etc. We're all tired of that, right? So in data mesh, you have these 4 concepts that we're using instead. So which one should I explain first? Maybe the domains. So instead of having this one big IT department or IT team, you have different domains in your organization that usually are made out of the business domains. So it could be you have marketing, and then you have finance, and then you have sales. That could be different domains. And each domain had their own solutions for the data, or it shouldn't be an own solution. I can talk about this all day, but so I'm going to try and explain it in an easy way. But each domain have their own. They are managing their own data. So we're federated the governance. That means that each domain are owning the data products that they're building. And they are also having, it could be a part of a platform, or they could also sometimes they choose their own technologies, which might not be the best idea, but that can happen in the data mesh world. So we also have teams that are inside each domain that can be both technical and business oriented. And then each domain, they are producing, as I mentioned, these data products. So each data product is something that is findable, reusable, is delivering value, has a high quality, and that you know the rights to use, etc. So that could be one data product. And the idea here is that each domain can then distribute that product and make it accessible for the rest of the organization. So these products, 1, 2, 3, you see here, they are now available for the entire organization for everyone to use, but the domain that owns the product is responsible to make sure that it is accessible and that it's following these standards. So that's the idea. And then to make sure that we are having some level of control here, we have a federated governance, which means that even though each domain is their own boss in a way, we still have some level, or we should have a level of centralized governance. So that could be on standards, on how we are documenting things, what roles are we using, what can these roles do, etc. And then we also have a self-serve data platform. And that could be all kinds of things. So that would be interesting when we're going to discuss the different technologies for that. But the idea here is that you have a centralized place that are providing some level of support or some level of technology, and that these domains can take advantage of to build their data products and to have that control over their data products. Yes, so that could be that we are setting up the infrastructure, and then some team is doing that. It's fine. It's fine. So the team is doing that, and then each domain can decide that, okay, I'm going to use Synapse. So someone's set up Synapse for me, and now I can be in there and develop my products and have that control, and then build that insight. Or it could be Databricks, etc. So that was data mesh. Trying to be short.
Yes.
I wasn't.
We just need to schedule another. Like,
It should be a separate session.
Yes.
We can
Next
talk
time.
about the beauties of data mesh.
Yes. Next time.
Yeah.
Okay. Databricks.
Databricks. So from what I gathered from your short introduction of data mesh, you could basically do this anywhere, but Databricks in itself does not have the nice and neat capabilities to really get you started right away. And that's obviously because they're built on the data lakehouse architecture. So you could set up your folders and have your different domains working in different subfolders and use the different clusters, for instance. But it's not really made for a data mesh type of architecture. So it's
You could. It just
You could.
it requires more of you from a governance perspective.
And I would say Synapse is the same way. There are ways to set it up, but you either have to, create multiple Synapse workspaces through Azure and make sure that you set up everything and deploy that. There's no built-in options for specifying which domain something belongs to, or you have to spend time inside of the Synapse workspace and making sure that you set up and give people access to the right areas. So it's kind of like Databricks. I think we're both kind of like meh. Okay.
we're hilarious.
We're so funny. We're so funny, you guys.
We're laughing. You just don't hear it.
Okay, we have fun. That's the most important. Okay. Fabric. What about Fabric?
Obviously. Okay, so Fabric is trying. I would say. So Fabric is trying to be your data mesh solution. So what they're doing is that they're introducing this new concept. It's not a new concept, but it's the first time we see it in the Microsoft technology. So it's called the domains. So the thing is that you can put in your workspaces. That's the same that you have in Power BI. I've been working with that. And now you can group that into domains. So you can say that all these domains here, now all these workspaces here, they should be in my marketing domain. And then you can set up separate domain roles. So you can have a domain admin and a domain contributor that can help you organize and manage that domain and the assets inside of that domain. You can also put up some policies. So it says that every time this person is creating a new workspace, that workspace is automatically or magically put into this domain because that person works in marketing, for instance. So that's a step. We're getting somewhere. What I am missing is this, what about the data product? So it would have been so nice if there was a way for me to label that this is the data product and that I could follow that data product in my journey and where it's in and how is that working. So that the technology is actually the foundation or helping you manage this quite complex architecture that sometimes become a data mesh. Yes, sometimes. So it's like, it's a smiley, but I mean, I want more.
Yeah,
I want more.
But you definitely have self-service and domains.
Yes. Oh, yes. For sure. So that's the strength. So yeah, Fabric is there and it's ready for you. So as a self-serve platform, there you go. Here. What did you? And then you can use all the experiences, and you don't need to spend time doing that integration, etc. So yeah, it's the strongest contender for sure.
You still have a way to go.
Yes.
Okay. So how do you choose? Yes.
You choose Fabric. No.
So just to summarize some of the things that we have gone through here today is just kind of making you think about these things before you choose a tool, because it's not just what is the newest or shiniest or coolest, in which case you would win, of course, even though it's
You
not
could have given me another technology because then I would have won.
But think about the architecture that you need. And think about whether you need data mesh or whether it is more appropriate with that centralized data warehousing for standardized reporting.
Yeah.
And all of that, or data lakehouse as well, like look at the use cases. And that also depends on who the users are. obviously. Do you have business users that you want to enable and empower to do things like self-service? Do you want to enable them to, build their own reports, to do their own kind of analysis, to upload their Excel files and do a little bit of, transforming and finding those insights? Or do you have like power users who might be good at things like running SQL, doing analysis, who might be a little bit more comfortable working with technology in general? Or are you working with a large, IT department? Maybe you are a large IT team who can manage handling all of those requests, who can deliver on, a good time and, within budget. So think about that before you build the technology. And the last thing here is also, what are their existing skills? And this kind of ties into their roles as well. So you may have a lot of users who prefer using visual interfaces, who like dragging and dropping because it's intuitive. They don't have to spend time learning anything technical. They just want to do their jobs and they want to get value out of their solution. Or maybe, like I said, power users who already know SQL, who have been working with that for many years, who are comfortable with that. Or maybe they are coming from a background. Maybe it is in statistics. Maybe they know Python already. Maybe they are comfortable doing that. And all of these things are things that you need to think about in your own project, and it can change from project to project as well. So think about these things before you choose one tool over the other. Don't just go for the shiniest, newest kid on the block. And then obviously,
or do that. Or you can do that.
Or do that. Up to you.
You can do all these things.
But I think we also had some questions on this. This is also very important to consider.
Yeah.
It's the pricing, it's the licensing model. And this very often also drives the choice of technology. So if we look at this service by service, Emilie, Databricks.
Azure Databricks.
How much is it going to cost me?
It is pay as you go. So it's based on the workload that you're doing on the compute that you've set up, and then obviously the choice of the compute is very important. And there are different computes for engineering and data warehousing. So that's, if you want to utilize both, then obviously you pay for both. But if you want to utilize just one or the other, for engineering there's standard and premium. So you can choose between those two. And then in addition to that, you have 3 different computes. The most expensive one, which is the all-purpose, that is in the majority of the time used for more data science types of workloads. So if you're doing ETL in Databricks, then I would go for a job or a job light because they're a little bit more on the cheaper side. In terms of the warehousing, you would also just go for SQL or SQL Pro if you want to go on the cheaper side. But here you only pay for, or you only choose premium, and that is almost as expensive as the premium compute for engineering as well. So those are very similar. The one thing that we have to remember when we are using Databricks, if you click on the next.
Do we have one more?
Yeah, there should be one.
Yes.
Yes. So in addition to the compute power that you choose, you also have to remember that the compute is run on virtual machines. In addition to the virtual machines, you also have to pay for managed disk, blob storage, and public IP addresses. And that is not specified in the calculator, so that's an additional cost to your Databricks compute. And in addition to that, you usually do your own storage account. You probably do some orchestrating with Azure DevOps. You have a key vault for storing all the keys, so you can combine or make these components talk to each other. You probably have some Azure DevOps repos for version control of your notebooks and your code. So there are additional costs in the sphere of when choosing Azure Databricks. The nice thing though is that you have pre-purchase plans for 1 year and 3 years. So I just wanna put that out there as well. If you want to go for a data mesh type of architecture and you want to allow the different domains to choose the technologies that they're using, I think Databricks would be beneficial if all the domain teams uses Databricks, because then you can reduce the price with the pre-purchase plan. Having them run something in Databricks and something in Synapse and something in Fabric might not be so beneficial. So data mesh, but with the same technology is at least better than different ones with this expensive tool.
Right. Same kind of thing in Synapse. If you've ever tried to give an estimate of a Synapse project, I feel you. Because it is basically all of these services tied into one, but instead of having one pricing model, you still have to, figure out the pricing model for each of these different parts. So even just within data integration, within data pipelines and data flows, those are two different pricing models in terms of pipelines. You have to figure out in terms of how many activities, how much data do you move? Is it on-prem? It's complicated, is basically what I'm trying to say here. And then you have the other parts as well. You have things like the Spark pools on a different model. You have Data Explorer pools. You have dedicated SQL pools, which is, as you can see, one of the more expensive things that you can use. But then you have serverless SQL pools. And it's kind of funny that serverless SQL and Databricks is expensive, and serverless SQL in Synapse is cheap. So make sure that you pick the right one for that one. But I think I've already mentioned this. Serverless can be very cheap. Dedicated can be very expensive. But in general, it's not the cheapest solution when it comes to data warehousing, but it can be super cheap if you want to use it for ad hoc querying, or if you just want to do data pipelines like you could in Azure Data Factory with the capability of querying that data within the same user interface. So again, use it for the right purpose, and it can be very cheap. And just like Databricks, you do have pre-purchase plans available, so make sure that you look into that. But this is complicated. You need to know a lot of details about the data that you're working with and how you want to build your solutions to be able to give an estimate to someone. And I think, and I know I'm talking about Synapse here, I think that is probably one of the coolest things about Fabric, is that you don't have that super complicated kind of licensing.
Yeah, or it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be.
Because since it's software as a service, you can pay for a license, and that's what it costs. And then you have that capacity, but that means that you're also paying for a given capacity, and then that's what you use. So if you need more, you need to upgrade your license. But again, you can just click and do that, but then it's going to cost more. Or you can do it the other way and say, I actually didn't need all that. I can go lower. So, but you can also use pay-as-you-go solutions or a reserve capacity in the same way that you can. So you can do it complex in that way, but you can also just pay for the license itself, just as you do with the premium capacities in Power BI. You've been using that before. Yes.
So yeah, I just had a question, but so I'm now having questions because for us we are able to fine tune the compute and the capacity that we choose. So is that the 7%?
Yeah, on certain parts of it.
On certain
yes,
parts,
you can do that for data warehousing. You can choose the scale. For data flows, you can choose the Spark cluster. So it is the same, and that affects billing, obviously.
Yeah. But I mean, fine tuning might be a strong word to use in Fabric. But we're not fine tuning. You're just choosing a capacity. Yeah. That is some sort of level. So you're just choosing a SKU, and then you have.
Yeah. And
you
that
have what you get. Yeah, under the hood there.
Yeah.
It's just given to you. Or you pay for it, but then it's given to you.
And I would say that could be either a pro or a con, because the pro side of it is that it's very simple for business users to know, okay, we are going to pay X amount of money per month or per year, depending on how you budget. And you know that is what it's going to cost. And it's like buying an old on-premises server where you had like, this is the capacity, use it as much as you want within the limits that you have. It's kind of the same thing now with Fabric. You have this capacity. And as soon as you see that, okay, we're starting to hit the ceiling here, we need to upgrade, you can go to this capacity, but you can't fine tune it. So it's always like, I think it's almost doubling in capacity for each level. And that also means that if you want to use Fabric, you're always starting with, paying for either that capacity for a month, even if you just want to try it for a little bit, or you can use the pay as you go option. But the pay as you go option, if you use that for longer periods of time, that is going to be almost, I think it's almost double the price of reserving and
can make that expensive
capacity. So if you want to reduce the cost, then you need to increase the maintenance of pausing, resuming, and scaling that capacity. So it's a little bit of a trade-off, like how much time do you want to spend on trying to reduce the cost versus just buying the cheapest option and letting it run? But for those who are on a very tight budget, and you have simple scenarios, this is, again, serverless SQL and Synapse. If that is your option, you almost don't have to pay for it. You just pay for what you use. So it's a little bit of trade-off on these things. Did you?
No, we just moved on time.
Oh, yes, I know. Okay.
That was
I thought you were like, okay, remember this.
This is me telling you we're on time.
Yes, okay, perfect. I think we are actually ready to summarize.
Yes.
So to kind of sum up this session here, you have Databricks,
The data intelligence platform.
Yes, very cool. Some things built in, good connections to other things, like you can use Data Factory to get data into Databricks. You can use storage accounts. In terms of Synapse, you have the analytics platform. From a technical perspective, you still need to be kind of technical to use it.
And you have Fabric, where everything is actually integrated.
Yes.
But you can also pull in external tools if you want to. And you can choose if you want to be on the technical side or non-technical side while you're developing. So
yes. The question then is, which one do you choose? Hopefully we can't answer that for you, but hopefully you got a little bit more to decide your choice of tool after the session. We've given you a few questions that you need to consider and think about. And with that, I think the last thing we want to do, we're organizing Fabric February. So if you want to learn more about Fabric, come to Oslo, Norway on February 8th. And with that, thank you so much.